Good evening and welcome to Shades of Jazz. I'm Robert Ginsburg. I'll be your host tonight, bringing you the best in mainstream jazz. Kenny Barron in the background from his CD, The Only One. The tune is All God's Children. Kenny Barron on the piano with Ray Drummond on the bass and Ben Riley on the drums. Tonight on the program, we'll hear music from the Hammond B3 organ great Tony Monaco. We'll also hear from guitarist Larry Coryell, bassist Bob Bowman, vocalist Nancy Reed, and soprano saxophonist Jane Ira Bloom. All of that in the second hour of the show. This first hour of Shades of Jazz I'm going to dedicate to a very special guest and some brand new music. Well, I'm very pleased to have in the studio with me today an old friend and musical associate, Ryan Fourt. Ryan is no stranger to Fayetteville in northwest Arkansas. In fact, he was born and raised here.
That's right. And
Ryan's career in music has been long and fortuitous. It has.
Pun intended.
It's one of those things where, for me, it's very gratifying to see a young musician coming up. In fact, weren't you a scholarship recipient for the Jazz Society Summer Jazz Scholarship Program?
Yeah, you guys did provide that, and got to go to the Aebersold camp at least once, maybe twice, and that was good in the early years for my development. So I really appreciate that from you guys.
Well, Ryan, it's great to have you back, and you're in town visiting. I know you still have family here, but you're living out in Colorado.
Yep, I live in Colorado, and that's kind of my home musical home base. There's a lot of things happening out there. It's a good place to kind of call home. There's plenty of work to go around. Good musicians who I feel challenged by and helping me grow continuously. And then, the occasional popping out of state for some other stuff. But, yeah, that's where I'm located currently.
You've been out there for more than 10 years.
Yeah, it's like 11 years now, so time flies.
Amazing. Well, tell me about your latest project that is yet to be released.
Yeah, we're here I just wanted to share some of this music with the listeners, a little preview of the album. It's not out yet. I hope to have it out maybe by the end of the year, but if not, early in 2016. But yeah, it's music I've been writing over the last several years, and I just felt like it was time to kind of put a more original stamp, a more original album out there.
Is this your fourth or fifth recording project?
It's my third as a leader. This will probably be my seventh album total in the discography. Been on some other people's projects, but yeah, this will be my third as my own project. So, but yeah, it features some really great players out in Colorado. Some of which are nationally known folks, and I was just really happy with how the music came together. So I was super excited. I called you yesterday. I was like, hey, I'm in town. Can we get together and maybe do a little recording? And you were kind enough to, in the next day, let me come into the studio with you. So thank you so much.
Well, no, thank you. It's great to see you, and I'm looking forward to hearing some of these tracks on the yet-to-be-released CD, which will be entitled Big Slick.
Big Slick, that's right.
We'll get to that. But did you end up graduating from the University of Arkansas?
No, I left 2 years. I moved out to Colorado 2 years into the program and kind of just established myself out there as a freelance musician. So,
but you were studying with Dr. Jim Greason?
Yeah, I studied with Dr. Greason for a couple of years, and that was huge.
And playing with the cats around here, Claudia Burson, Steve Wilkes, seems like Larry Cangelosi, the saxophonist, was in town then.
Keith, John Barrios, Darren
Novotny, the drummer.
So many great players in the area, flying under the radar.
Well, and it occurs to me also that one of the legendary musicians out of Arkansas, although Little Rock, I think, Ken Walker, the bassist, he's living out in Colorado as well.
Yeah, we play quite a bit together. We've been doing a lot of stuff. We have kind of a regular gig on Thursday nights in Louisville, Colorado. So yeah, we have that Arkansas connection, and we're always talking about old people we've played with, or do you know this guy, or do you know Buck Powell in Little Rock, or I used to play with who's the drummer that used to do the Afterthought thing? Gosh, I can't remember that guy's name.
I can see his face.
Yeah.
And I can't think of
Anyway,
his name.
but yeah, Ken and I are always chatting about all the old musicians that we've both crossed paths with.
Well, it's one of those obsessions, I think, not unlike some other ones that come to mind, but if you are an aficionado or a jazz musician, anywhere you go and you meet other people with the same obsession, you immediately have this common ground that really breaks down barriers. And I mean, from being a musician, it's even beyond just being an aficionado. When you meet other jazz musicians, it's like suddenly you're sharing DNA.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I hadn't thought of it that way.
Well, before we get into the new thing, and I know that's really what you wanted to let people hear, I want to revisit something that I've played on and off on at least a half a dozen occasions on my show, and this is a release that you did about 5 or 6 years ago called Choose One.
Yeah.
And I'm torn. I think I mentioned you my favorite tracks are the first and the last. But tell us just a little bit about the making of Choose One.
For the longest time, I had an obsession with like organ, like the Hammond B3 organ, and soul jazz, for lack of a better genre title. But yeah, it's stuff like Jimmy Smith and John Patton and Babyface Willette and Charles Earl, all those great organists. I'm way into that. That's like, if I had to pick a genre of jazz to be on a desert island with, it would probably be that. But so that project was my attempt to try. It's not necessarily soul jazz, but it was my attempt to kind of tap into that sound a little bit and have the guitar and the organ be the sonic foundation for the record. And it's a sophomoric effort, but there's some good stuff on there, and it was a good experience recording the album. And
you wrote a lot of these tunes, didn't you?
Yeah, there's I think 4 originals on there. Blues from Home, Choose One, 60 B's an original, and it seems like something else I can't remember off the top of my head.
So what track shall we play off of this?
Play Blues from Home. Let's do that one.
You want to do that one? All right, since you're back home visiting.
Yeah.
From the CD Choose One by Ryan Fourt, we'll double back on after we've heard this and tell you who else is performing. But this is called Blues from Home, and again featuring Ryan Fourt on the guitar, and also he composed this piece. From the CD, Choose One, we just heard Blues from Home, a composition written by Ryan Fourt, performed by Ryan. Ryan, you know, this CD holds up for me.
Okay.
You kind of indicated to me that you felt like it was a sophomore. I think what it is a document of a time and place in your.
That's exactly how I look at it, and it documents that period of time, and I'm really glad we did the album. It was a really good learning experience. Learned a lot about being in the studio and how to be more efficient in the studio, which I think helped me going into this latest project, which went super smooth. It went really well and efficient.
So at its best, when you're in the studio as opposed to performing live, how do those two things dovetail, or do they? Is it a totally different experience for you, or is it you still trying to find the zone?
It's really different. When you're playing a gig in front of an audience, the best gigs are where the audiences are engaged, and you feed off that energy. In the studio, you don't have that unless you do one of those like live studio recordings and you invite people in. We didn't do that. So everything is based off the musicians you're playing with. You have to get your energy from their playing, from their energy. If you don't do that, it can sound stale. It can sound a little sterile. But we decided with this latest project not to do any isolation booths. So we all were in the same room. We put some baffling up, around the drum set. But we could make eye contact. We could see each other. There's drawbacks to that because you can't do if you make a mistake, you can't do a lot of overdubbing. But our approach was do 2 or 3 takes of every song. And that way, if somebody does jack up a note, we can pick a different take. And surely one of those 3 takes is going to be good. But to me, this latest album, which we're going to listen to in a minute, it has a warm sound, even though it's a studio recording, and it has an interactive quality to it because we were feeding off each other's energy.
Why don't you tell me who's playing on your new recording?
So this first track will feature Annie Booth on piano. She's a great young Denver pianist, plays great. Matt Smiley, my longtime companion. We've been playing gigs together for years, and he's just such a solid bass player. And somebody kind of new, to me anyway, drummer Ed Brazil. He's from North Carolina originally, and he's studying, I guess he's getting a doctorate at CU in Boulder. And we've been doing a ton of stuff together, and our hookup feels real natural. So just our timing and everything is in sync, and love playing with that. So those are the musicians on this track with myself on guitar.
And before we jump into it, very briefly, why don't you tell us where this title track came from?
Okay, so yeah, if I ever have time, which I rarely have time, but I enjoy playing poker, and occasionally we'll get up to casinos and play some Texas Hold'em. But the poker pantheon is full of all sorts of really neat sounding quotes and language. Almost every hand you're dealt has some kind of a nickname or pet name. But if you're playing Texas Hold'em, if you're dealt 2 whole cards, two cards you get when the dealer throws them around the table, if you get Ace King, that's known as Big Slick. I just thought it sounded cool as heck. So,
from the soon-to-be released recording Big Slick, here's the title track featuring Ryan Fourt. Ryan, I got to tell you, that is a smoking opening and title track.
Yeah, I thought it was a good way to kind of kick the album off and set the mood for the rest of the record. The record, we're only playing it 2 or 3 tracks today, but it definitely it goes through a gosh, I don't know how to describe this. It changes tone through the record. There's some more freer improvised stuff. So it starts out very just straight ahead, but we get into some adventurous stuff. And then the end of the record, we bring it back to more just bebop, tonal, melodic, jazz. Was
the progression from tune to tune at all in your head as something thematic, or did it just evolve that way?
Well, I'd like to say I planned this all out, but it more just had to do with we recorded all this music. When you go back and listen to it, you have to see how one track flows into the next when you're picking the track order for the record, which we pretty much have it locked down. I think there's 10 tracks on the CD, will be 10 tracks on the CD. And, you sit on iTunes and you put things in different places and copy and paste stuff here and there until you feel like you've got a flow that just where you can listen to it from start to finish and there's no abrupt sounding transitions.
And you have the kind of variety that you want from tune to tune.
Oh, yeah, for sure. A lot of different feels.
So was there a consensus among the musicians when this was all in the can that you guys had come up with something good?
Yeah, I think everybody felt really good about the record. And it's pretty rare as an artist. I'm my own worst critic, but when the album was done and they sent us home with the raw mixes and I listened to them, I thought, man, this is okay. Like, this is something I want to get out there. And part of that is I hired really top-level musicians to play with, and I knew there was no way they would in any way let me down. They were going to bring the heat, and they did, and it raised my level. Just playing with people like that, you have to kind of elevate yourself, and the product is crisp, and it's got some energy.
Well, the other side of all of this, we can kind of dive into the deep end in terms of artistic vision and what it took to find the right musicians and so on and so forth. But none of that really means anything if you haven't got the chops to put it together and make it happen and find the money and the resources. Yeah. So there's kind of some background to that too. You went the extra distance to be able to afford to do this correctly and get some support.
And we had some of your help, Robert. So I'd be remiss if I didn't give you some credit with this. But yeah, I applied for a grant through the Arts Alive Foundation, and they have a lot of different things. They offer artists, whether it be visual art or music. But I applied for, I forgot what the grant's called. And they needed some letters of recommendation, and you were one of the first people I thought of, and you wrote a very nice letter, a very glowing letter. And, it was one of many things that I helped put it over the edge during their committee meetings they had when they were reviewing the applications. And I got, I think it was a physical letter in the mail, and they said, we'd like to inform you. We got the money for you, and you're going to receive this grant. And it made me feel more relaxed in the studio because I didn't feel so on the clock because I had some extra money that I could use, and we were able to do multiple takes of things and not feel rushed. And so my thanks to the Arts Alive Foundation and to you for writing that letter. So thank you so much, Robert.
Well, hey, it was a privilege for me, and it's there have been occasions where musicians I've known over the years have asked me to do that sort of thing or write liner notes, and I'm always thrilled to do it.
You wrote the liner notes on Choose once, so you've been an integral part of my career. So, man, thank you so much.
So as we move through a couple more sides on this recording, tell me more about just the dynamics of the writing process. As far as this is all original material, and that was something that you consciously dove into. You wanted to make a statement in terms of compositionally what you can do, and then performing it.
The writing process is such a mysterious thing. I think it's different for every musician, the process. Sometimes you hear chords and then the melody comes later. Sometimes you just get an abstract melody that you hear in your head. My big thing in the last 3 or 4 years was whenever you have that creative moment, you could be in the shower, you could be driving in your car, it doesn't matter. Rather than letting that go and thinking, oh, it'll come back to me, as soon as I hear something that's distinct, that kind of comes from wherever that creative place comes from, thankfully with the smartphones and stuff, if I have something I hear in my head, I'll just grab my smartphone, hit the record button, and just lay down a little snippet of whatever it was. That way I don't forget it.
Yeah.
And then I can go back and, okay, let's put some chords to this, let's write a bridge. But I'm trying to be more astute as to when those creative sparks happen, because I used to just kind of let them go. And how many tunes could I have written over the years if I hadn't let those ones go a number of years ago? Now I'm getting on top of that more.
That's really fascinating to hear you say that, because as you describe it, it's almost a direct overlay to the process that some people have with dreams, where there's a dream you want to remember, and if you don't write it down,
you got to write it down.
But there's another,
it'll be gone.
But there's another side to this that I know you are also facile at, and that is the inspirational germ, perhaps, is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But I remember talking to Bobby McFerrin, and he did a process for a year where every day he wrote a song.
That's one approach, and a lot of my friends have been doing that. And it doesn't matter; it doesn't have to be good, but just write something every day.
Working the muscle.
Yeah, working the muscle.
It's like finding the turning point, if you will.
Nice segue.
So tell us about Turning Point. That's the next track.
This tune, I heard the chords in my head first and wrote a melody. If for any musician nerds out there, it's based off of an A pedal point, and then it has some chords that move around. So if you listen to the bass in the tune, he's just playing quarter notes, playing an A natural. And so it's actually a really simple tune, but it's melodic and just kind of sets the tone for this part of the record.
From the forthcoming CD, Big Slick, here is Ryan Fourt performing Turning Point. We just heard another track from a forthcoming CD. It'll be out hopefully,
I'd say early 2016. I'm going to shoot for that.
Good. Ryan Fourt, who is in the studio with me tonight, a Northwest Arkansas native who has relocated to Colorado, and we're talking about some of his past experiences in jazz and in Northwest Arkansas, and leading up to this brand new project. Big Slick is the name of the CD. You heard Ryan Fourt on the guitar, along with Annie Booth on piano, Matt Smiley on bass, and Ed Brazil.
That's right, Brazil.
On drums. An interesting name, Brazil. And you're tuned to 91.3 FM, listener-supported KUAF, National Public Radio. This is Shades of Jazz. I'm your host, Robert Ginsburg, with you till midnight tonight. At midnight, Fred Hall and Swing Thing, and part one tonight on Fred Hall's show featuring Charlie Barnett. Ryan, why don't you set up this this third track for us? This has a kind of an interesting backstory.
Yeah. So as a teenage boy growing up in the 90s, I was exposed to the grunge music movement, you know, Pearl Jam and Nirvana and Soundgarden. And I really liked the Stone Temple Pilots, and I grew up listening to them. They were some of my early like rock music heroes. As I have grown older and kind of analyzed their music, it's not just, you know, power chords. They're using a lot of, I wouldn't say outright jazz harmony, but they're using some seventh chords and just things that you don't hear in all sorts of rock music. So I kind of had a feeling these guys might be kind of closet jazz fans, even though their music doesn't sound like that per se. But I tried to find a way that the tune Plush was a favorite of mine that they did, I think back in '92. And so I just started monkeying around with some different approaches for it and kind of rearranged the guitar part. It's in the same key and essentially uses the same chord motion, but it's a little bit faster than their version. And we got it laid down, and I thought, heck, you know, I had followed Robert DeLeo on Twitter, who's the bass player in Stone Temple Pilots and the composer of the tune. A lot of people don't realize he composed that piece, but he's actually a really great composer on top of being a good bass player. But so I was like, I'm going to tweet this to him. I put a link for the song, said, hey, I know you're busy. Can you give this a listen? I'd love to hear what you think. Within 5 minutes, he had tweeted me back and said, wow, this is a great sounding track. I really love what you did with it. And as like, I went into like 12-year-old girl mode, like one of my childhood heroes was like giving me the time of day and actually liking something we did. And so I'm hoping he can give us one last little promo push when the album comes out and kind of let his fans know, because he's got, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of followers on his social media business. And it just meant a lot to get his feedback, because my thinking was, he's either going to hate this and think it's a travesty of a version of his composition, or he's going to love it. And it turned out to be the latter, and I couldn't have been more ecstatic. So this is our version of Plush, which will feature Peter Summer on the saxophone.
Ryan Fourt on guitar from his soon-to-be-released CD, doing a Stone Temple Pilots cover.
That is correct.
The only cover on this recording.
Yeah, we do we do the Days of Wine and Roses,
Okay.
our own arrangement of that. And actually, we have an arrangement of All the Things You Are. So there's only 3 cover tunes, one of which is that rock tune turned into jazz samba.
Plush is the name of the
Plush.
tune. You know, and as I heard you describing the inspiration for this on a jazz recording, it struck me that this is a phenomena that is becoming more and more widespread. I think of Brad Meldau and some of the people that he's covered that are more contemporary artists, 80s, 90s.
Yeah.
And I think it makes sense. There needs to be new standards.
Yep.
And there needs to be new inspiration for
Correct.
jazz improvisation. And it needs to move forward with the rest of the music, not turning our backs on what was. So, I mean, is there other music?
That's exactly where we were coming from. And I think we still play the old tunes, and those are such great vehicles, and they're such good compositions that they're going to stand the test of time. But as a modern jazz musician, we do need to find new standards in different places. Of music that people who maybe weren't born before 1950 might recognize. We got to find music that you might be playing in a restaurant and someone turns their ear and says, well, that's a Beatles tune. Or, Meldau has his version of Blackbird, and he did a Soundgarden tune. He did Black Hole Sun, which is another grunge era 90s rock tune that he turned into his own thing. And it can help you draw in an audience that maybe wouldn't have normally gravitated towards jazz. So it's a way for us to kind of expand the music.
And the audience,
absolutely.
And the audience, I agree. Now, you're in town visiting family, and you've got a new teaching gig as well, right?
Yeah, I just started teaching adjunct at the University of Wyoming. It's been a real good opportunity, and so I did one semester, and then starting up in the fall will be my second year teaching there. So it's good to share my passion with people who actually are receptive to it and want to learn, and I'm having a good time teaching up there.
Well, I would love for you to be able to tell me that you're going to be doing some gigs while you're in town, but you kind of told me you're taking a break.
I'm laying low. I'm not opposed to playing a show here and there, but if nothing pops up, it's okay. I haven't had a day off in like 2 months, so I'm okay just kind of seeing the folks and enjoying the early summertime here in Arkansas. It's really beautiful right now here.
If folks want to follow you or try to find your previous releases,
Sure.
How can they do that?
My website, ryanfourtmusic.com. Fourt is spelled Fourt.
Ryan is R-Y-A.
R-Y-A-N. Yeah, I figured people could deduce that. So yeah, that's the website. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I'm kind of a social media junkie. You got to be in this day and age as a indie artist. But yeah, I'm out on the World Wide Web, so I have some other recordings out there.
Well, it's great to touch base with you once again at this point in your career. I can tell you're really excited about this recording, and as I look back, I don't think I've ever seen this sort of enthusiasm coming from you and confidence that you've really produced something that you can be proud of.
I'm excited, and hopefully when the album actually drops, we can get back together in here and do another little spiel on it. That would be amazing. So I'll keep you posted on that, and we'll look forward to talking again, hopefully.
My guest this evening on Shades of Jazz, Ryan Fourt. Ryan, thanks again.
Thank you so much.
This is KUAF, National Public Radio, and you're listening to Shades of Jazz. I'm your host, Robert Ginsburg, and here's Ira Sullivan.